President Trump is dialing up the pressure on corporate America like never before, and surprisingly, many CEOs are choosing to stay silent. This growing tension between the White House and big business marks a dramatic shift in the way the president is influencing the future of U.S. companies, with some business leaders seemingly unwilling or hesitant to push back publicly. Trump's influence over American businesses has reached extraordinary levels. While he has a history of publicly criticizing companies and their top executives, his recent moves have taken this to an entirely different scale, targeting even lesser-known corporate figures, such as economists working within major firms like Goldman Sachs. This escalation signals a new chapter in presidential involvement in corporate affairs. Just recently, Trump announced a groundbreaking deal where the U.S. government would take a 15% share of NVIDIA's sales of their H20 chip in China. This arrangement is contingent upon easing restrictions for NVIDIA to do business there. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, hinted that this type of revenue-sharing deal could become a model for other companies, suggesting the government might demand similar cuts from additional firms moving forward. Trump has always leveraged the presidency as a platform to steer business towards his goals, but in his second term, this strategy has intensified immensely, explains Ryan Bourne, an economist from the Libertarian Cato Institute. The NVIDIA deal, in particular, has set off alarm bells within the U.S. business community, which traditionally leans toward limited government intervention and free market policies, the very principles many businesses hoped would be reinforced by Trump's re-election. However, demanding a share in private company profits in exchange for business opportunities defies these free market ideals, raising questions about the future landscape of American capitalism. A Wall Street Journal columnist recently warned that Trump's approach resembles that of the Chinese Communist Party, likening the U.S. economy's trajectory to a form of state capitalism, reminiscent of China's tightly controlled system, a comparison that is bound to spark debate. Are we witnessing the U.S. sliding toward an economic model where government handpicks winners and losers? This concern is echoed by experts such as Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, a Yale management professor who frequently consults with CEOs. He describes the movement as Marxist MAGA, pointing out how corporate decision-making is increasingly overridden by political influence, fostering a climate of cronyism rather than competition. When asked, White House spokesperson Kush Desai dismissed worries about cronyism and state capitalism, instead portraying President Trump's direct involvement as a catalyst for a new golden age for America. Trump's recent escalation also includes intensifying his criticism of CEOs and other executives via social media and public statements. Historically, during his first term, several corporate leaders openly challenged Trump's policies or distanced themselves from his more controversial remarks. But in his second term, most companies appear wary of engaging in public disputes, focusing instead on winning the president's favor. For example, many influential CEOs, including Tim Cook, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos, attended Trump's second inauguration earlier this year, signaling a desire to maintain cordial relations. Even Tesla's Elon Musk enjoyed considerable influence over federal workforce restructuring until their relationship soured recently. Despite concerns from investors and business owners over Trump's aggressive tariffs and efforts to assert more control over the Federal Reserve, public criticism from corporate America remains notably muted. Many CEOs prefer to lobby behind closed doors rather than risking the president's public ire, reflecting a fear of retaliation for any perceived dissent. Trump has been unafraid to publicly police corporate actions, pressing automakers not to raise prices amid tariffs, calling on Walmart to absorb tariff costs, and taking credit for Coca-Cola's decision to revert to cane sugar in its soda recipes. The most recent example saw Trump demanding the resignation of Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan, labeling him highly conflicted due to ties with China. This statement caused Intel stock to tumble sharply. Experts describe this as one of Trump's most confrontational public challenges to an executive, underscoring his willingness to break with traditional norms and precedents. Yet after a personal meeting with Trump, Tan was able to secure the president's praise, and Intel shares recovered. Almost immediately, Trump shifted his attention, criticizing Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon and urging him to replace the firm's chief economist, Jan Hatzius, who has warned of the negative economic effects of Trump's tariffs. Interestingly, Goldman Sachs stock rallied despite the attack, suggesting investors remained less rattled. Trump's influence extends beyond corporate America. Since taking office, he has extracted concessions from law firms, universities, and economics, and media companies seeking government approval for mergers or deals. Simultaneously, he has openly challenged the independence of institutions like the Federal Reserve, exerting pressure on Chair Jerome Powell to cut interest rates and firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after unfavorable employment data was released. These moves have sparked bipartisan concern that President Trump's interventions may destabilize crucial economic institutions. Michael Horrigan, a former top official at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, emphasizes the importance of objective, nonpartisan economic data for healthy political and economic discourse, a standard he fears is threatened by political interference. Yet all this turmoil hasn't dampened investor enthusiasm. U.S. stock markets continue to hit record highs, rebounding from volatility earlier in the year caused by fears over tariffs. Although Trump eased some import taxes following market reactions, 15% tariffs on most imports remain widely in effect. Sonnenfeld predicts that only a severe market crash coupled with unmistakable evidence that tariffs are harming the U.S. economy will embolden CEOs to publicly oppose Trump. He believes inflation will spike later this year, providing business leaders with the cover they need to speak out more forcefully. But critically, they will want to base their arguments on financial impacts rather than political ideology. Until then, Sonnenfeld has some advice for American CEOs facing the president's growing power. They must band together. You can't confront a bully alone, he says. Collective action is the only path forward. But here's the controversial question. Are these corporate leaders too afraid to stand up for free market values? Or is their caution a pragmatic response to a uniquely aggressive presidency? What does this mean for the future of American capitalism? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.